Hey guys, Terry Red here, and in this video, we are moving on to part 2 of the all-in-one example table tutorial that has been updated for FizX 3.2 as of this video at least. And what we did in the first video was we used that tutorial and the updated example table to add FizX 3.2, fleet mechanical sounds, and ball rolling sounds to the table. So by the time you were done that video, you would have had the basic stuff added to the table. Everything was working fine. And then from that point on, it's a matter of just taking your own time to go through and finesse the whole table, get everything dialed in really nicely, which I wasn't going to do in that video because, that's nothing of interest for you guys and it would take forever. So now we're at the part 2. And part 2 is all the optional stuff. So that's basically mainly PinMechSound, and which would add extra support for DOF, which is feedback for cabinet players who have like solenoids in their cabinets for the things like the flippers and the slings and the bumpers and solenoids. All those will give actual feedback. So when you have that happen in the table, well then it'll happen in the cabinet as well, right? So it'll give you that, but it will also support giving PUP SSF or Pinup Player Surround Sound feedback, which is a similar principle, but it's doing it with sounds instead of actual solenoids. So it plays sounds through your PC's sound system, however you have it set up. If you have a 4-channel surround sound, well then the position of the position of everything on the table's sounds will then play from the position based on where your speakers are located. And people who have cabinets, for example, will have a transducer here, 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 and they'll be able to get all these sounds from everything on the table play in the location from where they would be on the real table. And because this is set up in a full-size virtual pinball cabinet, it sounds like you have a real pinball cabinet or a real pinball machine in your pinball cabinet while you're playing the table. All right. So again, that's all optional. It's not required as part of the all-in-one example tables code or tutorial. But if you take the extra steps to do this, then everyone benefits. Cabinet players will love you, VR players will love you, and desktop players will love it because they can still get the positional stereo sound. Or if you have a home theater with 5171 sound, then you get the positional sound all around you as if you're inside the pinball machine. So it's very, very, very cool. And you'll get FLEEP sounds for all of those events automatically as well after adding all this. So it's a huge, huge upgrade. It just makes the table that much better for everyone. So that's what we're going to be doing in this video. All right. All right, so basically I'm just going to kind of take you through, catch you up since the last video as to what's been done here. So just fire up Future Pinball and load up our good old Knight Rider project there. So, all right, so all the physics, or all the code and the items and the physics have all been added and updated, but that's the easy part. The part you need to spend a lot of time on your own after the fact is going through the whole table and just refining everything or fixing problems or errors. You have to understand these tables were made many years ago in most cases, where Future Pinball's physics were the old original Future Pinball physics, so they had to work around those problems, right? The flippers originally would shoot super wide, ball behavior was very different, so certain aspects of some tables may need to be changed a little bit to make things work correctly or at least better. So, for example, this table, the plunger lane was a pain in the butt because the ball would shoot out, but half the time it would just bounce off this little corner here and it would not go up around nice and smooth, or half the time it would get up there and then kind of get stuck here. It wouldn't come all the way around, or if it did come around, then it would come down and bounce off of here. So I had to extend this ramp. I had to move the plunger lane over just a little bit to the right to allow it to clear better. And then just did some adjustments on the orbits, and especially this part right here, the walls. Instead of having them come straight, I had to curve them a little bit. So now when the ball comes down, it'll come and clear that instead of always bouncing off of this and then moving over every time. And same thing for this part here. So if the ball was coming down here, like if say the shot went up here and kicked it out there, well then it would come down and then bounce off of this every time and then come up. So I adjusted the walls here. I added some invisible walls to allow it to have smoother movement. And now the ball will always come down and clear that as it should be. This area here was a pain because this post was too far over. So then if the ball went up there but then came back down, well then it would bounce off of that and go over. So I adjusted that, adjusted the walls there. Same thing with the kickback here. I adjusted the walls to make sure it would clear all of this nicely. But then the other problem was the wire ramp here. It was not, it was actually, its height was too low down here. So therefore the ball was sometimes catching some of the rings coming out, which shocked me, So I was like, oh, wow, okay. So I had to increase that a little bit, which then has an effect on how well the ball is going to come down here because, the ball may not quite make the loop nice. So, you have to kind of do some refinement of all that stuff, right? What else was there? I added the slings, the diverters to the slings up here. So now they're all correct. And I only have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rubber posts that I've added on the table, whereas before all the rubbers everywhere would have had to have been replaced, right? But I did add 2 little tiny ones, one here and one here, just because the geometry is weird on some spots like that, and the ball may kind of get stuck and just rest up there. So I add those, are just invisible, so that way the ball will always roll off of that, And some tables will have rubbers there, some will have metal, just make it work out however you want. And this area here, it wasn't a vertical up kicker before. It was a scoop, a V channel scoop or whatever you want to call it. So the ball would just roll up that scoop and then continue over. Those things are a pain in the butt, and clearly it was the original. It was a pain because he had an invisible kicker there to try to boost it up. And I did that with Junkyard Cats as well for the BAM edition, and it's just a pain. I hate those things, so I avoid them as much as I can. So I removed that and put like a vertical up kicker to open this up to make that shot a lot better. It'll still require some work down the line, but I'm doing an update to this table, a pin event light, or some other update down the line anyway. So that'll need some updates with maybe a little bit of art or something else added there. And so just don't assume tables are good to go. Just because you updated the PhysX, you're going to have extra work that's going to be needed on a lot of them. All right. So after doing that, after doing all, I spent last night doing that and went through it. Like pretty much everything should be good to go. It plays much, much better now. Everything's nice and smooth. So like for example, the plunger lane gate, there was no gate originally. There was just a bracket. So, I adjusted the ramps and I adjusted that. So now the ball shoots all the way around every time, nice and smooth, nice and fast. And there's that vertical up kicker. And look how everything's just going where it should be now. That nice and smooth. Look at that. Clears everything. Much, much better. Everything has lots of power to it, the flippers. Everything's just fast and, smooth compared to how it was before. Look at this. It clears it every time. It never did that before, even on the original. So it's just a much, much, much better playing table overall, and it's actually acting way more realistic. Now, some of the wider shots are still a pain because, the table was never really set up for regular flippers, but they still work fine. Look at that every time. So see, if the ball comes down here, smooth, whereas before it would come down and go bounce off there, or when it came over here and came down, it would go boom and bounce off there. None of those problems are there anymore. It's all nice and smooth. Same with the kickback now. If you hit the kickback, nice and smooth. And that's what's worth making the extra effort. Just taking the time to do all that stuff. Now you can see here, that this vertical up kicker here, there's art missing because that's where the scoop originally was. So that's the kind of thing that I would have to add something more there or redo some of the art to make it look a little nicer. I don't like to do that stuff, but I'll do it if I have to. Like Blade Runner that's the problem child table because, all the shots are super wide shots for old Future Pinball flippers, and that's fine for that, but for realistic physics, they don't work well at all, and that table was just a pain in the butt. So I had to do a lot of changes to try to make it play better, and even then, it's still very hard to make some of those shots. So, yeah, I just wanted to show you where we're at. It's playing excellent. Everything's good. So much nicer to play now. So that's where we're at. So now that you're at the point of having all your physics dialed in pretty nicely, and you don't have extra work to do around the table to fix anything for any of that. Now you're at the point where we can do our optional PinMechSound updates, adding those commands for everything on the table, for your flippers, slings, and bumpers, and solenoids, and all that good stuff, which will allow you to have nice SSF and DOF for everything. And that's what we're going to do right now. All right, so where we left off at was we basically were at the bottom section of the tutorial. And we had... Where are we at? Yeah, we are at the bottom section after the table's been already fully updated for physics. Everything's been refined, perfect, no errors, no problems. So we would get down to the optional PinMechSound support. So what this is going to do is we're just basically going to, go through this section here and either edit what's there for what we have on our table or add any new ones if we require them. Like let's say you have more flippers or more bumpers or more slings, who knows, right? Then we'll go through and we'll add what we need. We'll edit them to make sure they work with the items on our table. And when that's done, then we'll link them. We'll just, copy the subroutine back to replace the action in the table. So in this case, like a slingshot, well, we are in this section saying, okay, we're not just doing the slingshot action, we're also doing this PinMechSound, which will then link back to whatever we put in here. And then that will then manage our sounds, our DOF, our SSF, all that stuff automatically, okay? So if it seems like it's complicated, it really isn't. It's just, when you go through the process, it's a lot easier than it looks. It does take some time. It absolutely does take some time. But in the end, if you go through the process, it's worth it, all right? And then the other thing we have to do as well, which that might be the first thing we'll do, is we have to remove any sounds in the editor that are being triggered by the events on the table, because we don't want any of these sounds playing at the same time as what we're doing in here, right? We're replacing everything ourselves so that way we have the better FLEEP sounds and we have SSF and we have DOF automatically. We don't want anything in the editor playing any mechanical sounds, all right? And if you have to add more FLEEP sounds to make it work, that's fine, So we'll come back to that, but that's where we're going to go right now. So I'm going to take the steps to show you how to remove a lot of the sounds and what to look for. All right, so this is an area where every table is going to be different. All right, so basically we want to go through every mechanical item on the table. So the flippers, slings and solenoids, bumpers, anything, or the autoplungers, anything that's a mechanical type device. We want to click on it and we want to check down here to see if there's any sound effects for them. So in this case, it's our flipper, right? So what we want to do is we want to remove that. So we have to go through and we have to remove that on every item. So we'll do that for those. All right. And if it's easier for you, you can just do each type at a time, like, all the flippers first. So in this case, we don't have any, right? That's interesting. So what we have to pay attention with that is then that there might be a sound in the table code. It might be a play sound command that's activating instead of in here, because this is automatic, right? The table would just automatically make that work, whereas if you don't add that, then you have to add a code in the table. Now, there are various reasons why you might want that, but that's the kind of thing you have to check. You have to check both of them, right? You have to check this, and we'll remove any play sound commands when we get to that point in the table script. All right, so our flippers are done. Let's check our auto plungers. All right, nothing there. And nothing there. Okay. So slings are a little trickier. So sometimes you have to eliminate stuff to just find things easier. Okay. So in this case, so you got it for slings, you have to click on the actual rubber. And look at that. All right, so now in some cases that sound might not be mechanical, it could be a sound effect. That's rare. So if you're not sure, just double check it. And if you don't know for sure, you just go to Sound Manager and you look for that same sound. So in this case, FX Sling R. Because back then, you'd have to make sounds specifically for the right side or the left side in order to make that work. We don't have to do that with PUP SSF. Okay, so that's just a normal swing sound. So that's how you just check that, just to be sure, if you have any doubts. So those are disabled. So now let's go to the top. Same thing. All right. There you go. All right. So what else do we have on here that's mechanical? Okay, yeah. So let's do kickers. So we have the drain. You rarely ever get anything from the drain because it's usually when a ball hits it that it makes a sound, and there's nothing in here for hit sounds. The hit sounds have to be done in your table script. All right, but they will have sounds for the solenoid when it's kicking a ball out. So in this case, it's a now Rom. I don't know if I'm not sure. I don't know what language he is. I don't know if he's Spanish, if he speaks Spanish or not. Because some of these I don't know if that's Spanish or not, but bottom line is it's a scoop sound. So you want to remove those, okay, for all the kickers that you can find on the table. So in this case, here's another one. We didn't have one there, so that's fine. There's one up here. So remove that. There you go. And I don't think there were any other kicker. Oh, there's one right here. There you go. Yeah, some of the naming conventions are different on each table depending on what language the person spoke, right? So it's interesting. I find it interesting, what I come across. All right, so I think that's it for that. All right. Let's take a look. Yeah, I don't think there was anything else. Okay, so bumpers then. Let's do bumpers. So same thing. You have to go all the way down, and yep, there you go. So bumpers. Again, if you're not sure, double check. There you go. So bumpers are all removed. What else do we got? I'm just trying to think of whatever mechanical stuff might be on here. Now, just so you don't understand, the DOF support and SSF support we're adding is, well, the DOF support is just solenoids for cabinet players. That if you want anything more than that, then you're gonna have to create a custom config and go the extra mile. But for the all-in-one example code, it's just basic solenoids that are going to be used, nothing beyond that. And some very basic lighting to go along with that, but that's about the extent of it. All right, so I think that's all the big stuff. Now there are some things like diverters, for example, that you may or may not want to do. It depends on the table, really, and how the code's done. That's really up to you if you want to go that extra mile. So for stuff like that, you have to make sure you have the sounds, is my point. So if you're not sure how to do it, then you can just leave it and do all the main stuff. You can always come back and update it afterwards. So for that, for the little things like those diverters, I'll just leave those for now, and I'll come back. Now things like, for example, targets, again, you have target hits, right? So we can remove those as well. Now, in the case of the targets, we used to have to do SSF for when they're hit. We don't have to do that anymore because guess what? FizX takes care of that. I think it does, actually. I think it does based on the material. We'll have to check that. We'll have to double check that to see if it's working. But I'm pretty sure that's the case, that it will automatically do the sounds for you based on the fact that it's a target. Because now FizX knows it's hitting a target, so therefore it's going to play the sounds automatically for that for you. You don't have to do that. But you want to remove them because you don't want doubles, right? You don't want doubles for everything on here. So where's that? target. I thought there was, no, that's not one there. This one here, that's what it was. All right. So there's that. I can't remember if there's other targets there or not. I think that's all for the targets that I can think of. Yeah, I think that's it. Okay. All right. So that's a lot of the big stuff. Uh, Now you get into some more specific stuff that's not a general typical table mechanical event. Some of them are triggers that have been added throughout the table that the author may have used to recreate ball rolling sounds or the ball hitting a wall or anything like that. Some tables have a bunch of those, some have none. Most have none, but some from ROM or Slamtail or some of the other bigger authors, you know, they would add that all over the table. Like Slamtail has that, even on his newer releases, had them everywhere, and I had to remove every single one of them. And man, oh man, that's a pain because you don't want duplicated sounds. But once you do remove them, then it sounds so much better, right? So what I'm talking about is things like these triggers here, or that are everywhere. Uh, you basically want to make sure you don't have anything that's playing like ball hit sounds or anything like that. Now there might be one here. For example, that might be for where the ramp was coming down. Yeah. So what that usually is that's usually the ball drop. Yeah, like a ball fall. So I'm just gonna leave this here for the moment. That way I know which one is used for the ball falling from the ramp. The idea is that's gonna basically make the sound of the ball hitting the wood on the playfield, right? So this one probably has the same thing. Again, not every table will have that. It's up to each author. Yeah, so that has it too. Now let's see this guy here. Okay, so he doesn't have it, so there's no ball hitting here. And again, you got a diverter sound. We might change that up later on. Let's just take a look quickly here. So sometimes when you get these little triggers, like the inlane triggers, they'll also have sounds on them as well, right? And we can add our own for that. You know, we can add pretty much stuff for everything. But with PhysX, a lot of the stuff gets sounds automatically. Like when it hits it, it's like, okay, yep, play a metal sounds because that's the material that it uses, right? Or if it hits a wall, that's wood. We'll play wood sounds then, you know, like, or if it's rubber, we'll play rubber sound. So a lot of that's automatic now. So we don't have to manually add that for everything, but you know, you never know. So let's take a look for this one. Nothing for that. So I'm just going through and taking a peek. So I don't now in this table's case, there's a lot of unused triggers. They were never used for anything on the table, like as in for sound effects, and they weren't even used in the table script. So my guess was that he had a bunch of these with the intention of using them for mechanical sounds, like the ball hitting things, but he just never followed through with actually using them. So that's not unusual either, but you have to check everything, guys. Like you have to make sure, like if you're going to remove something, make sure you know what it's being used for or not used for. Like here's probably another ball drop. So we'll add our own for those as well. Okay, like we'll use the triggers that are already here, but we'll just replace the sounds and add them in ourselves. All right, so again, okay, so here's one for like a wire ramp. So again, we can add that as well. I'll leave that in here for now. I was just looking for ball hit sounds because those are the ones that are automatic. So that's another ball. Oh yeah, that's when the ball falls. So that's another one, right? So they're everywhere. Like you know, depending on the author, they can be all over the place. All right, and I don't think there's any sounds up here. I don't think so. No. So again, you have to kind of look all over the table. But I think that's all the major ones that I can think of that are controlled on here. Like, see, you'll see ones like the ramps here, right? We've got two triggers here, and they may not be used for anything. So these were probably used for like a ball rolling trigger, right? So once you're done doing the entire table and you see extra triggers like that that are not used in the table for anything for sounds, and you've checked the entire script and they're not used for anything, then you could probably remove them if you want. But, you know, if you're not sure, just leave them in there. It's not hurting anything. And I think that's it, guys. I think that's all the major stuff that we have to remove. We'll come back to the ball drops and the diverters later on, but I think that's all the major stuff we have to do. Yeah. So, all right. So that's all our sounds removed for the time being. All right. So now we're coming to the big brunt of the work, what we've come here for in this video. So now we're going to update our PinMechSound stuff. So I'm just going to explain how this works. All right. So you're going to go to your script. It's going to be at the top, where you start at the top. You just scroll down. Now, just so you guys understand, I leave DOF and PUP disabled at first. I get everything added and working through Future Pinball normal sounds, for example. When everything's been updated with PinMechSound, I make sure the Future Pinball sounds are working. Then I'll come back and enable both of these and try that out in my cabinet. I have a cabinet. Or if some people just have SSF, try that out to make sure that works. If you don't have either one, enable them anyway and then test it. And then you can see at least if it's going to give an error or something like that. And if it does and you can't solve it, well, then you just make sure they're disabled and you put a note in there saying keep them that way, right? So, all right. So for our PinMechSound, we're going to scroll all the way down to the mechanical sounds and feedback section. Starts right here. So this is where I've organized all this. It's easier for me to do it this way. You guys don't have to. You can take all of your PinMechSound commands for each action and put them directly in the script if you want. I find this much easier because then you can copy and paste it from one table to another, and it's easy. And then that way you just change a few things. They're all in the same spot. It's just easier that way for me. But it's up to you. You don't have to use subroutines like this. It's just way more organized and easier. That's it. That's the only reason why. All right, so PinMechSound. What is it going to do? Well, it's basically going to manage your Future Pinball mechanical sounds, your PUP SSF mechanical sounds, and your DOF cabinet feedback devices automatically with one single command. It's going to replace any play sound commands, or maybe a play music. Some of them are play music instead for that mechanical event, whether it be a flipper, a sling, a bumper, whatever. So if you read through here, it tells you everything you need to know. This top part here, very important. Don't just ignore this stuff, all right? So it's telling you usage, and this is the command right here and what everything does in the command. So this is the actual command, PinMechSound, right? And this part here is the sound. So what that is that's this portion right here, all right? It looks a little complicated. It's not. It's basically just a normal sound file. In this case, though, because we're using FLEEP sounds, we're using like many different sounds for one event. So most tables will just have a regular single sound for the flipper on and off every time. And that doesn't sound very dynamic, and it just doesn't sound great. It really doesn't. So what we do is we have a bunch of sounds that we play randomly each time. So if you look in your sound manager and you'll look at the sounds we added in the part 1 video, that's going to be all the mech sounds, right? That's all the FLEEP sounds that we added. So if we go to flipper, and then there you go. So mechanical flipper L01. So this is the first part of the file that it's going to play. The rest of this is basically saying, okay, we're going to play a random file out of 5 files that start with this name. So now we actually have more than that, but we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We actually have like 7. So you can actually change this to 7 here, right? In that case. So we actually have like quite a few. And here, I'll change that one too. Why not? All right, we're gonna have to add more, but so all these are just the similar sound, but just slightly different each time. And when you play them over and over again, it does sound better, right? But these are high quality sounds. The Future Pinball sounds that have been used for 10 plus years, getting old, and they sound old. And it's like, yeah, that's why everyone goes with something like FLEEP sounds. They just sound way more dynamic, way more high quality, and just, better and different, Like, that's just me personally, to each their own. But, so that's what this is, all right? So that's what that portion is. So the Future Pinball item, this is the one that everyone messes up on. They just don't quite understand the idea. So what the Future Pinball item is, that's this portion here, okay? So what it's saying is, okay, we're looking for this item on the table. So left flipper 1 is this guy here. left flipper 1. So the future pinball item has to be a name, or it has to be an item on the table that has a name and an X and Y position. The reason why is because it needs to find that item so that way it knows its position on the table, and then it will know where to play the PUP SSF sound's position based on that. So if you have a cabinet with 4 exciters, which are kind of like speakers that give feedback, then when the flipper sound plays, well then it's going to play it in that position in surround sound, just like a home theater with movies, right? Same idea, only in this case we're doing mechanical sound or surround sound feedback. Okay, so that's what this is. It has to be a proper name that matches something on the table. If it's nothing on the table, you'll get an error. So it's very important that you make sure this is correct. It has to be exact for the name and an XY, as I said before. All right, and that's all you need. And it can be anything on here as long as it has that. Like if, for example, if, like let's say you wanted to play you wanted to add one of these, but it's like, oh well, that, like say the slings, for example, won't have an XY, or a ramp won't have an XY, but you wanted to have the sound play for that. Well, you can either add, like say, a trigger that's used just for that purpose, and that will work fine, because it'll give you the X and Y. Like if you do a surface, you can't do that, right? It's not going to give you the info. So you can add extra triggers, make them invisible, and have them just serve the purpose of this if you want. All right, I've done that. Or something nearby. Like let's say, I wanted a sound to go off for some reason right here. Well, I could use this trigger because it's got all that stuff we need, and I can put that in there. All right, so again, that's all that is. So what else do we got? All right, volume, simple. That's the volume for Future Pinball play sound commands. Because what this does is it will, if PUP SSF is disabled, it will take all this and play it through a normal Future Pinball play sound command. So that's what this is for. It's the volume for that play sound command, basically. All right, so now we're down to, okay, so the next 3 are all about DOF. All right, so DOF is software that's used to take commands from a Future Pinball or Visual Pinball or Pinball FX and make something in the cabinet work, whether it be it's a solenoid, a light, or a shaker motor, whatever. So in this case, we have the first part, which is our DID. And it says right here, DID. So this is basically our DOF trigger number. So that way, when we send a command to DOF, it knows what item is going to be triggered. I already have those values added here for you guys, so you know what range you can use. Okay, so for flippers, I've set it up so that you can use it 801 to 809. Okay, and that's what this is here. So the first flipper is just going to be 801. All right, the second flipper is going to be 802. Third flipper, in this case, is going to be 806. All right, so as long as it's a range within that for the same item. Okay, so in this case, left flipper on is going to be 801, but that same left flipper off is also going to be 801. And the case for the right flipper, same thing, is going to be 802, and so on. Flippers are a little different because they turn on and off. Everything else is going to be different because they're not going to turn on and off, and that's what we're going to talk about for the next part. So this D value, okay, so what the D value is, that's the action, basically. So it's either 0 for off, 1 for on, or 2 for pulse. So in the case of flippers, when a flipper is turning on, it's going to be 1. If it's turning off, it's going to be 0. If it's going to be anything else, it's going to be always 2. Okay? So left slingshot, because it pulses. It doesn't stay on, it just turns on quick, and that's it. It just pulses on quick. And that goes for everything else. Flippers are the only thing you ever use 1 and 0 with, okay? Super simple. Again, just look at the examples I have here, right? If you're not sure. And the last one is D-type. So basically this is like a label for what type of event or item this is being used for. So in this case, it's being used for a flipper. So you have these options to fill it in with, all right? So flipper, slingshot, and it has to be exact spelling, so you can just do, copy and paste it to whatever you need to, right? So if it's one of these items, use the exact name. If you can't there is no item, there's nothing specific, then you could just empty quotations. And I'll show you down here what I mean. So for example, we have flippers, slingshots, bumpers, solenoid, but in this case, it's something that's not a solenoid-based action, right? Because not everything uses solenoids, but they do have mechanical sounds with their actions. So in this case, we're not doing anything for DOF at all. Nothing in here, nothing in there, and the end one is just empty. But you have to have them still there. You have to have something there, right? So anything that doesn't have a proper matching event like this is just going to be empty quotations and then nothing for the DOF stuff. So that's what this section, for example, down here, Future Pinball mechanical sounds and SSF sounds. No DOF, and then you'll see when the ball hits the drain, for example, no DOF at all. All right? So that's what that's all about. And that's basically the gist of PinMechSound. You know, once you understand that and you just make sure everything's added correctly, that's it. It's not hard. It's just, you know, it takes some time to go through the process. But I've done a lot of the work for you guys. Like a lot of these are already entered. You just remove the ones you don't need or add more of the same type. If you have like more slingshots like this table does, you know, we've got 2 more. So we're going to add 2 more of them, you know, or anything else. You just add what you need. And you go through the process to just make sure each command is correct. Okay? And then when we're done that, we're going to copy the name of the subroutine back to the actual action in the script. All right? You don't have to use subroutines. You can just take the command if you want and put that directly throughout the script. But I like to keep everything in that one section. It just makes it super easy to find everything. And then that way you can make changes quickly. You can copy and paste this to another table if you want. You know, I just find it much easier to work this way for this specific type of, you know, stuff because it's all in one section. So that's it. All right. So now that I've given that blurb, we're going to actually go through the process now of adding these. All right. So what I like to do is I like to start this by just going from the top down. All right. So we'll start with the flippers. So you already have the main commands from the example table already here, right? So we already have this one set. It's left flipper 1, on and off, right flipper 1, on, off. So we already have that for these guys, right? Now for the upper flipper, we have left flipper and right flipper on and off. That was from the upper right flipper on the example table, right? So what I'm going to do is, since we have 2 more up here, is I'm just going to make a copy of that, and I'm just going to change the name to left, since that's where you're using, right? On, off, and then I'll just copy that to, and make sure it's 2. Make sure it's 2. Now we've already got 801 and 802 used, and then we have 806, so we can use 805 if we want. Again, as long as it's in the range that's set aside, because this is using a default config on the DOF config tool site, which is how this stuff works. So using these numbers is kind of like a universal value for the config that I created. That way, it'll work for any table that uses this config. So, bottom line, use these values I give you. All right, so the flippers are good. All right, and see, I think I keep accidentally typing in stuff with my keyboard there, so I gotta be careful. All right, so our flippers look good. All right, so what we do then is we copy, and we're going to look for our flippers in script. We have to look for their on action for this one, and we're going to copy that over. So the easy way to do that is I'll do a copy, but then what I'll do is I'll just do a search for left flipper 1 on, and then I'll do solenoid. Oh, if I got to type that right. Or you could just do a dot. Remember how we did that before, right? The reason in this case it's not a subroutine, it's a command, it's an action. It's going to be dot solenoid on or off like we showed before. So you notice how it's getting up here. We're not looking for this section because this is in the FizX section, right? So what I prefer doing is, again, like I said before, I would start underneath the FizX section and then find the first instance. All right, so left flipper solenoid on. So we want this action to go along with that. All right, so PinMechSound, left flipper on. So each time that flipper flips up, it's going to play that sound. All right, and that's basically all you need it for, because that's the only time the solenoid is turned on, right? If you're not sure, double check. Now again, that's our FizX section, right? We don't want that. So this is, again, coming... Now, if you're wondering what this is, it's a little messy because of the way the original code was done. This is in the Future Pinball key press section. So every time you push a key or a button to activate in the game, it's going to be in this section here, okay? So we've got that working for the flipper. Yeah, we're good for that one. So then what I do is I just paste back into here and go right back to here. And then you want left flipper off. All right, so the same idea. So since we've already linked to this one, we can just go back to it again, right? So we're already there. So this is for the key being held down section, right? So we want to keep doing, and what we want is, actually, an easy way to do it, we could just look for left flipper solenoid off. There you go. And then you just put your command in the same spot. And then you're going to want it ideally here, but you're also going to want it everywhere else as well, because the reason why is just in case. Because if you had the flipper held up, but then there's a tilt, for example, well, then you want to make sure that it's being turned off, because it's going to be turning off in the person's cabinet as well, right? You don't want their flipper being left on forever and ever and ever and ever and ever, because then it might burn it out, right? So just make sure you're putting it in all the spots where it shows, just in case. It's just easier that way. Now, if you want it to be on the same line, for example, you can do this. You can put a colon. It's like, I don't know if you can see that, it's a red colon, and then paste it on the same line. You know, that's Visual Basic script. You know, if you don't understand Visual Basic script, I can't teach you that in this video, but, you know, there's going to be a lot of little tricks like that you can use to make things a little more organized. It took me years, guys. You know, I went from never touching this stuff to learning how to use it over years, right? So I just looked at examples from other tables. No one taught me. I just looked at all those examples and then eventually figured it out. All right, so now we do the same thing for the right flipper, okay? So in this case, what I would do is I would just look for the left flipper on to make it simple, and then look for the right flipper on, which is usually nearby. And that's super simple, right? Right flipper solenoid on. There you go. Super easy. And then same thing for off, as we did before. Okay, so what I would do is I would scroll down to the key released section, all right? And you'll always see the off command in there. So there, you go right there. And then again, right flipper one solenoid off, and then look for every instance. So same thing here. And yeah, and you can, like I said, you can organize this however you want, as long as it's done correctly. And then just keep going. Now that's our PinMech or FizX section, so we don't touch that. And that's, yeah, so we're good there. And we'll go back to here. And then same thing for the other flippers as well. Okay? So you want to make sure it's going to be for these guys. All right? So left flipper on, right flipper off. So I'm not going to show you every instance of this, guys, for every single thing because it's going to take forever. So just do the same thing for all your additional flippers like we did right now. Okay, so now we move on to our slings. All right, so we have 4 sets of slings, right? So the slingshots, this is a little different. So this is a good example. So we can't use the slingshot rubber bands in our commands because they don't have the 3 things we need, right? They don't have an X and Y position, so we can't use that for our Future Pinball item name. So we have to use something that's close by, that has those properties, if you will. So usually the left inlane trigger is what I use. So don't assume that the spelling's correct, okay? So make sure you know that's exactly right. And same idea for the right side as well, right? Just don't assume anything. And it can be any item that's going to be staying on the table. You know what I mean? But just make sure they're all on there. And then we have our range 810 to 819, so 810 and 811, and they're slingshots, they're pulsed, and so that's all good. Now we have 2 more that are up here, right? Same thing. Can't use those, so we have to use something else for that position. So we got to find something here. What about this guy up here? Oh, see, there's some targets I missed. I missed those targets as well. So let's remove the sound while I'm thinking about it. See, you never know what you come across. There's always going to be something you forget about. All right, so we're just getting rid of those. Has nothing to do with the slings, but needs to be done. But in this case, we can use this target as a reference for our X, Y, and name, right? So in this case, we need to add 2 more slings. So I just go like this, and then I'll just do left. I'll just do upper left, and then upper right, and then I'll just use this name for that, and then this one over here. You know, it can be whatever you want, just as long as it's not going to cause an error. That's all. You know, have it as close as you can. And we're using our different values, so 810 to 819. So next one would be 812 and 813. And that's it. So now that we've got those added, now in this case, we need to now look for the subroutine because it's not a command, it's a subroutine for these guys. So what I do is I'll just go like this, and then I'll type sub space and then fill that in. That's the quickest and easiest way to find it because we've been there before, right? Remember? So here you're going to see here's what triggers our slingshots when they get hit. Now in this case, it's got a sound, a play sound there, but that's a sound effect. That's not a mechanical sound, right? But you still have to make sure, right? Sometimes it actually is a mechanical sound. So for this, you can just throw it as long as it's where the activation point is, because you know you never know. You have to pay attention to where you're adding it, right? So PinMechSound left slingshot hit. So in this case, we know this is the right one. So I'll just do that. So I know that's the right slingshot, and then upper left and upper right. So I'll just, because I remember what the names were, right? So, but if you're not sure, don't assume anything, you know. But I've been doing it a long time, so you know I'm pretty confident in what I'm doing here. Oh, see, look at that. And did I screw this one up here? Nope. That one's left, and that one's right. Yep, okay, upper left, upper right. There you go. All right. So we can save that now. And save it to a separate file when you make changes. You know, don't save to the same file over and over again. When you make a bunch of changes, save to another file, just in case you screwed up, right? And so that's it for our slings. That should be good. There you go. All right. Now, if you want to test at this point to see if they work, absolutely you can do that. I'm going to keep going. I'll test later on, but you can test at any point now just to make sure everything's working. Okay, so slings are done. Now we're moving on to the bumpers. So bumpers are pretty straightforward. They're usually pretty easy. So you click on the bumper. So there, yep, there's bumper 1, bumper 2, bumper 3, or bumper 3, bumper 2, however they're arranged. And that's the exact name that they are using. So these are already ready to go. So you'll see there's different sounds for each one. It's not using the same sounds, you know, and you can arrange these however you want, you know, but as long as you get the right name here, it'll know the position. They'll sound fine. So for this one, oh, this is interesting. Okay. So we have to double check because there's more than one bumper hit sub here, right? And that's probably because the example table didn't have. Ah, see, this is a good example. You have to pay attention. So I might have to I might have to change that in the PinMechSound or the example table there. All right, so I'm gonna add that just like the rest of them because you don't want to have more than one sub. It may run both, or it may only run the first one it comes across, right? And that could cause some problems on the table. So that's why you want to make sure they're not named the same subroutine. So we'll just go like that, and then we just go boom, and we just do that for 2, and we just do that for 3. Look at that. Doesn't get easier than that. All right. And that's it. We only have 3 bumpers on this, so the bumpers are done. All right, so now we'll get into our auto plungers and the kickback, basically. So in this case of this table, some tables have both. You know, like Jaws had a kickback and a auto plunger, or in a regular plunger. This one just has an auto plunger, but I put the examples for the regular plunger in there as well. So since we're not using that on this table, say bye-bye. So for this, we need to make sure it's positioned. Okay, so it's still named plunger, X and Y. All right, so therefore you just look for this guy here. Now in the case of this one, because it's like a normal solenoid, just do that. That's the easier way to figure it out. Okay, now look at that. We have solenoid pulse every time the plunger key is getting hit, right? So I'm just going to tidy it up. So look at this. We have the plunger release sound being played on there because there's nothing down here, right? So if you're not sure what this is, well, then you just go to here. Because it's a play sound, it's under Sound Manager. Okay, well, we definitely don't want that because that doesn't even exist on there. That's the normal actual plunger. Well, we don't want that. So, yeah. All right, so there you go. We have an auto plunger. That's about it. And okay, so see that now we have that in another spot with a timer event. So that's probably from a new ball being created or a ball saver. And that's it. That's the only instance we have. So those are done. All right. And kickback, same idea. So no sounds here, but it's called kickback. And this is also called kickback. Same spelling, same everything. And then our DOF values are correct between 830 to 839, 830, 831. All right, so what we could do then is we could just go like this. And then same idea, solenoid, and then just look for wherever it is. So we have no extra normal mechanical sounds being played there, it seems. Nope, none there. Okay, so that's good. That's it. That's all we need. Nice. It's not always that easy. All right, so what else do we got? Okay, so that's our auto plungers in VUC, actually. So I would save at that point too. Do a quick test if you want to make sure it sounds fine. I'll be doing that towards the end when all this is done, but you can do that at this point if you want. All right, so we're gonna get into the kickers now. So this is the one that can have quite a bit of variety here. So now I have almost all of them usually organized into one section here. Now this is only a couple examples here. You're gonna have to add your own and name them specifically. But the plunger kicker is usually almost always the same. And look at that, still plunger kicker, and it's plunger kicker. And we're starting at 840 for our range, so that's fine. So we can look for that. Now we want the plunger kicker. All right, we found that, which is a pulse. That's good. All right, another one. There you go. And that's the only two instances for that one. All right, so now we have to basically go throughout the table now and figure out where all the different kickers are and then add ones for them. So in the case of this one, well, the kicker name is Pinball Scoop. We'll just keep it as that for now. So the idea here is that you have two actions. You have one for when it's hit and one for when it's actually kicking the ball out. The hit is just a sound. That's all it is. So in this case, you know, we want, again, the names to match the item. So in this case, it's Pinball Scoop. And I'll just put that there, because this is going to be the sound of it hit. This is going to be the sound of it kicking out. All right. If you look, our DOF command is correct for the next one because we don't use one if it's just a sound, right? There's no solenoid or no mechanical action. It's just the sound of the ball hitting the thing or going into the thing. And it's pulsing, and it's just a solenoid. In these cases, these are just solenoids. They're nothing specialized like a bumper or a slingshot. They're all solenoids, right? So now we have to make sure it has a name. So what I do is I like to just go here and just do that. Makes it nice and easy. And then we already have the proper sound for it, for each one. So then all you gotta do is look for this guy. Underscore hit. That's the subroutine we're gonna look for, and there it is. And that's our therefore you can see that where it's gonna get hit, we want that sound. All right, and we want this guy now because this is the one that's actually going to trigger it, right? So you can just go like this. All right, so we had another command for that one, right? So for that one, we can just put it there. Oh, it's just a one instance. Okay, so nothing fancy there. Wow, not much going on with that kicker, that's for sure. All right, so that's it for those kickers basically. So the idea is you would do this for every VUC or every normal kicker. So there's two VUCs here. I don't know if there's... Oh, yeah, there's another kicker right up here that kicks the ball out from the truck. So two vertical up kickers, a normal one. And I think that's it for this table. Yeah, that's it. Okay, so I'll just carry on, but it's the same idea. You know, add a hit and add a solenoid action, and then continue on until they're done. And I'll show you that when I'm done. Okay, guys, so the kickers are all done now. You can see here, I just added one for each kicker that's on the table. And sometimes you'll find stuff in the table script that's not actually using anything, like an extra kicker somewhere on there. If you're not sure, just leave it there, you know. But yeah, a lot of these tables I'll find unused stuff that doesn't get removed. Uh, so drop targets, this table doesn't have any. So, but if it did have any, you would then make sure, you give it a name of something on the table that's nearby that has an XY position in a name, and then you would name it appropriately, and then you would copy this to where the subroutine of it getting hit. Uh, and then the same thing for when it's getting reset. All right. So, and actually in this case, yeah. So, and be careful on here to make sure everything's correct. Now, this one's actually technically not right. I'm just showing you this right now because it's showing a DOF in an action, but we don't. There's no solenoids for when a drop target gets hit. It's just a spring-loaded mechanism that pulls the target down. So, yeah, in this case, we would get rid of that. So we don't actually need anything. That's what it should be. It's like that. And then same thing for reset. You would just look for when the solenoid actions are occurring for the drop targets, and then you would copy this to that location and make sure it's all replaced the same way. So yeah, that's basically, I mean, I can't really show you on this, but that's how drop targets would work, similar to like any other solenoid-based action. All right, so we're done basically all the main solenoid-based stuff. Like that's what we've done up to this point. That's why I have them organized in the way I do. I've been doing this a long time, and I just find it easier to work your way through the solenoids first because they're usually the biggest pain. Uh, so now we're basically at the point of things that are not mechanically driven events that have no DUF because there's no solenoid or any mechanical device that's driving it, right? Everything we're doing now is basically sounds of either the ball hitting something, but it's a specific event, or the ball rolling over something. So in this case, it's gonna be things like the drain, inserting a coin, nudging the table, rollovers. So pretty simple. So same as before, you just have to make sure that. Oh, actually, and as far as the drop targets, since we don't have any, we can get rid of those. Okay. Uh, so miscellaneous. If you have anything that doesn't work under the normal definition, I guess you can put some more stuff in there. That's up to you. But for the drain, same thing. We're just looking for the drain here with the proper name, and then X and Y, so we can use the name here. There's no DOF action, so nothing added in there. So all we got to do then is look for when our drain gets hit. So I know this off heart. Sub drain hit. Almost every table does the same thing. So there you go. Every time that kicker it gets hit, we want this event to go off. This PinMechSound. Okay, and that's it. I mean, it doesn't get easier than that. Now coin, we want to. This is where the coin door is. So we want the sound to come from this approximate location, right? Because that we know that works. So same thing. Okay. And now this is a little trickier. So for this, you're going to have to go through where the coin insert is in your keys section. So remember where we went for the keys? So Future Pinball key pressed by value code. It'll be in here somewhere. There you go. Player has inserted a coin. So basically, we want to replace this. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do that, just in case it's used somewhere else. And there you go. And it's not used anywhere else, so we're good. So we can just go back there. All right, and nudge. Okay, so that's a good question. Where would that be? Oh, hold on. Oh yeah, no, I wanted that. Okay, never mind. Hold on. All right, let's get past all the FizX stuff. All right, so we don't want it for flipper nudge. We want it for when okay, so this is the one here. It's usually in tilt warning is where, now this table, wow, this table has absolutely nothing for tilt warning. Wow, that's crazy. Okay, so just throw it in there somewhere at the top, because the idea is that it's when you're actually nudging the table, right? Wow, yeah, this table is bare bones. Okay, so all right, so that's I mean I'll save this at this point now, but I mean up until this is the major stuff. If you have anything additional you want to add, you can. I don't know if there's anything else. Okay, yeah, we'll get to this. Okay, so rollover lanes are not required now because FizX takes care of that. You know, like it's basically if you want to have a sound for it rolling over top of this or rolling over top of that, right? I mean, FizX is kind of taking care of that for you. But if you want to do it, then sure enough, you do it just like anything else. You would, left inlane trigger, make sure that's correct here and has X and Y, and then you would just copy and paste this to that subroutine. Again, that's totally your discretion because this is more for just, if you're very specific about what you want. So you can do that right here, rollovers left hit. And this is another one. So I'll just do this right here. And then this one is going to be rollovers right hit. And right. Again, you don't have to if you don't want to, but it does have a more distinct sound. So it's totally up to you. I just wanted to show you for the sake of showing it. So that way you know how that works. And those are done. Again, none of these have DOF action. So this is going to be blank, 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 all the way down for every one of these. Okay? All right. So everything in this section going all the way up is stuff that we've added to the table. All right. So we're pretty good there. We'll save. All right. Okay, so now we're at a spot that's a little more involved here. Ramps and balls falling off ramps or upper play fields. Basically, the ball falling off of anything. It's in a lot of locations. So some tables will have triggers and sounds automatically added for it. And if they do, that's great. That makes it in many ways a lot easier. But you're going to want to remove the sounds for those, and then we'll add those ourselves because we want to have that positional feedback as well for PUP SSF. Now, in the case of this table, there's triggers going into the ramp, and there's triggers going into the wire ramp, and then there's triggers at the end of the ramp. And same thing here, triggers at the beginning of the ramp and at the end of the ramp. Triggers at the beginning of the ramp, at the end of the ramp, and in this case we have a plastic ramp that then changes to a wire ramp. So in this case, we're going to focus first on the ball drops, on the exits, okay? Now, I left the sounds in before because I wanted to keep track of which ones were being used. So we'll go to this guy first, okay? So trigger 18, that's a ball fall, all right? So now I already have a couple that are kind of set here already for like a ramp exit. So it's going to be a little, you're going to have to either rename these or make them work for your table, okay? So in this case, I have just two generic ones, a launch ramp exit and a ramp exit. So I'm just going to use this one here. So that's just trigger 18. So we're going to use that. And we can call that whatever we want, but I'm going to put that here because that's our trigger item. Okay, so we want it to take place at that location. And we're going to do that. All right. So that way, it's easier to find. So now, trigger 18, we just look for it. Oh, okay, so this is a good example. Okay, so this is not used on the table at all. This is only used for sound, and that's it. So in this case, we're going to remove the sound. And then, because there's nothing on the table script using it, we're going to change it to trigger hit, okay? Because we don't need to link it to anything because it's not used in the script at all, right? It's only here. So now that means that when this is run, this will automatically play the sound, okay? So that's how a lot of these tend to wind up being, depending on how complex the table is. So there's that one. Let's try taking a look for any other. So there's that one. And well, we have the ramp exits there, but let's find the other ones if we can. Okay, so we have trigger, perfect, trigger 19. We'll do that then. And then we'll just do that, and I can almost guarantee you that is not going to be used. 19. Yep, it's not used anywhere on the table. So remove the sound. It's only used for sound and nothing else. So remove this portion. Oh. And make sure that's 19. Okay, there you go. All right, so we have those two sorted out. Now there could be another one up here. Sometimes they do that, depending on the layout of the table. I don't know. Because, you know, when the ball... Oh, that's the ball going in. Okay, I wonder why there's two, though. Interesting. Diverter off. Okay, and trigger 21. All right, let's just take a look there and see what's going on there. Okay, so that was probably used for some other sound at one point. Again, that's not unusual for some tables. All right, so let's see here. All right, so we're going to have them at the bottom of the ramps for sure. So we have that one. We have that one. All right, so we'll focus at the bottom of the ramps then. Yeah, okay, we'll do that. So those two are set. Now I already have you know, two different sets of triggers for two different ramps already. So you can see here what I'm saying here. So this is a little trickier. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have the exits. Yeah. So I'm just going to take this dude here. Okay. That's why. Yeah. So, okay. So these are just going to be used for... Got it. Okay. So these are just going to be used for our ramp exits in terms of where they're going to link to. Yeah, it's a little tricky to kind of explain it all, guys, but the bottom line is you want to find out which one it is. So this one's trigger 1. Jeez. Okay. And trigger 1. And then we take that sound out. And then this one over here is probably going to be, yep, trigger 3. Okay. So trigger 3. And if you look, you can see that we're using ball drop sounds here for FLEEP's ball drop sounds. Now you have to see if this is used anywhere in the script. And there you go. So in this case, we have to add PinMechSound. So that way we're not duplicating that sub, right? So we have that one. And we'll just go like this. That's easy enough. There you go. And then same thing for trigger 3. We'll see if that's used. Okay, so that one is not used anywhere else in the table. So we can leave that one be. All right, so that's all of our ball drops, as far as I can see, being used correctly. All right. So I think that's the last of that. Yeah. All right. So, yeah, I think that's the last of it. Now, the only thing that's left is the ramps for changing the sound when it goes on and off ramps. But that's specifically for ball rolling. That's something separate. So I'll keep that separate. We'll maybe go back into that possibly. So, yeah, okay. So at this point, we're happy with all of our triggers being added, or all of our main sounds being added. It's just ball rolling that should be left. Yeah. Okay. Okay, guys. So the ball rolling I won't necessarily worry about right now. What we want to do right now is do a quick test. Okay, so we're going to launch the table. Now, for you guys, you may have already been doing this progressively, which is fine. But I'm just going to show you here how everything sounds now that it's all added, assuming I have no errors or anything else going on. Okay, good. That's a good sign. All right. So again, I have the music all the way down, so that way we can hear all the sounds a lot better. Okay, see, you can hear the coin right away. See, different sounds each time, and then you hit start.
Welcome aboard the Night 2000.
And then you can hear the kicker kicking the ball out. And remember, hear that? Here, maybe I'll turn it up a bit so you can hear it better. You can hear it every time the ball hits something. Boom. It does different metal sounds or wood or whatever else, right? So, and that's going to include this, you know? Like it does, oh yeah, that's a one-way gate, so. So, I guess I messed that up. So, anyways, yeah, like. Okay, so flippers, obviously we knew those worked, so let's try the slings. All right, sounds like the slings are okay. Now you can hear that, right? That it's still hitting the rubber barely, but it's not enough to make the sling go off. All right, and if you got the kickback down here. Okay, so that's going off just fine. And remember what I said about the targets, right? We don't have to add anything for targets. They're automatically using the FLEEP sounds we added because of FizX code, right? Because every time the ball hits something, FizX knows what it is and then will play the sound appropriately for that automatically. And because we added the FLEEP sounds as part of the AIO Example code, it's automatically doing that for you. Yeah, so here's this guy. Now it's kind of hard with all the sound effects to hear everything, but it is working. All right, so that's actually a really good one. So you can hear the ball sound when it's going into the kicker, and then you can hear it when it kicks out. So those are all the things we've been adding, all right? So everything. What else did we add? Drain. Yeah, drain. Oh, you know what? I think there's an extra sound. Okay, so I think there's an extra sound that I didn't remove at the drain. So I'll have to check for that. So, but hear that? Hear the sounds of the rubbers? Because the rubbers are different. The rollovers that we added. So I'm not going very fast, but you hear that? So that's the sound of the rollover switch. You don't have to have that on there. But it's up to you, right? What else did we add? Drain, kickers, bumpers, yeah. Here, let's try going up this way. Okay, so. All right. Now, see, here's an instance of a rollover that you don't hear much because there's not really, it's a big amount of space there, right? So you might want to add it for something like this. Totally up to you. All right, so you can hear the ball drop as well. All right, and then we go on the ramp. All right, we'll see if the ball drop goes off. Yep, there you go. Same thing with this guy. A little loud. All right. Yep, and then that one's going as well. But listen, see, I have a trigger that's lying there that's I forgot about. That's making a sound. So I gotta get rid of that as well, right? So little things that you'll find all over. So see these rollovers? Nothing's going on now, right? So, but the reality is when the ball is flying through here, you're going to hear all the metal from the walls and everything else that it's hitting, right? So you're not going to usually hear much. But if you want to do the rollovers, you can. So I think we're pretty good for all of this stuff. Okay. So that drain has got to be fixed. Trigger's got to be fixed. So let's take a look there first. Trigger, we'll do that one. All right, so when hit wire ramp, okay, so not that one. Scoop hit, okay, so that one we don't want, but let's take a look. All right, so that is used for nothing except for going into there. Well, we don't want that because we already have our sounds for the VUC, right? But this one's used for, you know, when the ball goes up into the wire ramp, and that's one that we might make use of, right? And what else do we got? So we got, oh, the drain. That's what it was. Okay, so sub drain. Sub drain. All right, let's just see, because it sounded like it made a sound of. Why is it? Oh, he's got a double here. Boy, he does it a lot. There it is. Destroy the ball. Okay, so see, that's one right there. That you gotta watch it. Like, you know, like for me, I put the drain hit always up here, because the ball, if it's hitting that, it's either kicked out again and becoming a new ball, or it's the end of the ball, right? So it's the same no matter which way you do it. So that's where you gotta just kind of pay attention. But every table is coded different, so don't assume it's gonna be the same as what I'm showing you here, right? Some are simpler, some are more complex. So we'll just make one more quick test. All right.
Welcome aboard the Night 2000.
All right. So let's just. Yep. Hear the drain that time. See, you hear that? Hear that rubber sound? There you go. Much nicer now. There you go. All right. Doesn't that sound great? All right. Oh, there's another one there. Another trigger in there. Yep. So I guess they thought there was a gate there at some point or something, but there's no gate there. So yeah, we want to get rid of that. But I think that's about it. I think the rest is pretty good. All right. So let's find that one first before we go any further. Which one is it? It's probably this one. Yep. So we just want to make sure it's not being used anywhere else. All right. So we can get rid of that guy. And then these other guys were probably for similar type functions at one point, meant for sound effects. So that's the kind of thing that you can go back and take care of later on. You know, I'm not going to do that in this video. So yeah, so the rollovers that we had before, we can apply those up there if you really want. You know, if you think you're actually going to hear them. You can apply them here if you want, or, you know, to the rollover here if you want, or up to, you know what I mean? Like, you can do all the rollovers if you want. It just depends on what you think you're going to actually hear, right? Yeah, so I think we're good there. So now we have to move on to our wire ramps. Ooh. All right, hold on here. Yeah, we're way up here. That's right. All right. Okay, so we'll stick to the wire ramps for the current time. So wire ramps, I mean, they're pretty straightforward. You know, you basically want to know when you're entering the ramp and when you're exiting the ramp, right? So not all tables will have a trigger for that. Most of them should. Let's try to make this a little easier to see if we can. Oh, no. Okay, so this one, for example, okay, so this one has one for the wire ramp. Now let's just see if it's being used elsewhere. Okay, so see, you can see that, right? That's being used. Let's just take a quick look. And if, all right, so it looks like no sounds are being used. All right, so, but we are using a trigger too. So, well, shoot. Okay, let's see if I can. All right, gotta find my way back again. All right, but we do know trigger 2 is being used. So what we're going to do is we're going to make it so that this is the sound of the ball going on the wire ramp, and we've already got the exit, right? So we don't have to worry about that. All right, so now this is extra. See all this extra stuff here? We technically don't need that because this is more control for when the ball is going onto like a different material type of ramp, right? So if it's going from wood onto plastic, then we have to add a bunch of triggers at the beginning and then a trigger at the end and control all that. That's not what we're doing right now. We're just having a sound of the ball going on the wire ramp. It's not going to be perfect, but that's what we're going to do. So we're going to ignore all this and we're just going to do the same thing we did up here. Okay? So we're just going to do this because this is just a wire ramp. So it was trigger 2, right? Okay, so we'll do the PinMechSound. Okay, so we're going to have that hit, and then same thing, we want it to start up there. But in this case, we want it to be a wire ramp sound. I don't know if we have any here. Okay, so in this case, then, yeah, we don't have a wire ramp example because the example table did not have one. So what I'm going to do then is I'm going to use a different sound. So this is actually good. So we're going to look for wire ramp. So we start with mech. That's going to be more towards the bottom because it's W. All right, so there's two types of wire ramps. All right, so that's the stop at the end. So if you have, like, say, a ball that hits the end there, you want it to make that sound. We'll do that. All right, so we'll do the wire ramp no hit then. So you can just kind of do a copy for the name from that, and then just do this. In this case, because there's no extra, you know, there's no extra sounds, it's just a 1, then you just keep it in normal quotations, and that's it. Okay? That's all you're going to do. So we've got that. So now we just look for trigger 2, right? And we could, in this case, we could put it at the top because it's every time the ball hits it, right? It's not really a controlled condition. So let's do another one. And this one is going to be for one of these guys. I don't know which one. Let's try 21 and see. All right, so it's not him. Diverter off. Yeah, that's a trickier one. Oh, because that's where the balls get locked. Okay, so that's, yeah, okay, I'm not going to use it on that one. That's too short anyway, so you're not going to get effective use of that sound. So we won't use it on that one. We'll use it on this one, though. Yeah, so perfect example. They've already got a wire ramp sound. Oh, did they have one here? They did. Ooh, see? I almost messed that up. And again, the reason why it's important that we use these sounds is because it's the same sound used in the PUP pack for PUP SSF. So that way this one command will use it for both at the same time, okay? That's why we're doing this way with these very specific sounds. If you use the Future Pinball sound, it'll work in Future Pinball, but it won't play anything for PUP SSF, right? All right, so trigger B7, is that right? All right. All right, so it is used. All right. So here, you know what I'll do? No, I can't. Okay, hold on. It's not hard to find. I know, very quiet and not exciting, I know. Alrighty, and then we'll just do that. And that. All right. And that should be all we need for that. Oh yeah, I got it copied over to. All right. Okay. And that should be it for that. All right, I'm going to save that. And I think that's the last of that. Yeah, that should be it. All right. So we'll just do a quick test of that. See if it sounds okay or if it works at all. Now, if these tables don't have anything on there, you're going to have to add your own triggers to the table, and you're going to have to make sure they're set at the right height. That's beyond the scope of this video. That's table building. So that's up to you guys to take the time to learn that. But beyond that though.
Welcome aboard the Night 2000.
All right, so this is a little. That's a hard one. That's a hard one to sound because of the sound effects. All right, we'll just go. Yeah. So I guess we can't. It's hard to tell if that one's actually working. So we'll just assume that it's working. So this one. Oh, same thing. Okay, I could actually hear it though, so that's okay. Now you can try again. These other ones that are really short, that's kind of hard to make that, be effective. So there you go. So I guess the only other thing is if you wanted to add a stopper sound, towards the end for it colliding with that and it colliding with that. But I don't think we need to because I think PinMechSound's, FizX doing that automatically anyway. So guess what, guys? I think that's it. Oh, nudge. There you go. Okay, I nudged her. She's working. There you go. So the only other one that I noticed that I was missing was this gate here. I forgot about him. Okay, so oh, you know what? Okay, this is a good example. Yeah, see, scoop. Okay, so this is one we wanted to get rid of that sound for sure. All right. So we can make this as a gate. So see, that's a perfect example. That's a miscellaneous, right? We don't know what the heck that is, so we'll just make that as a gate. All right. Here, actually, we'll just do this. We'll copy him over. Use the same info. Plunger gate hit. Now, let's just take a look. We should have a gate sound in here. F, G. Oh, we might not. If we don't, then we'll have to add that. Plastic hip, roller. Oh, hold on. We might not have a gate in here. Okay. Okay, so this is a good example then. So we have to add the sound for that. So we'll go back to our FizX files, and we'll go to the FLEEP sounds. So this is all the extra sounds that we haven't used yet, right? So just give it a second. My hard drives have to spin up. Yes, I have mechanical drives that, go to sleep sometimes. All right, so gate, there you go. So you've got the gate sounds if you want. It's totally up to you if you want to use more than one for this. So in this case, we'll do 2. Okay. And then we'll just go back up here. Well, actually, before we do anything else, we'll do this. All right. Because this is for the gate. And we'll go like that. And then we'll just have to find those lovely gates that we just added. They should be there, yep. All right. And then what we do is we just go like that, and we take out the 1. And then we have a integer of 2 because we only have 2 of these. So that should be, I think, it. Yeah. That should be it. So, and that'll work. So we just have to make sure that this guy is not being used for anything else. Okay, but no actual sounds. Okay, so we just copy this over. And that's good. And he's good to go. There you go. See, that's a good example where you think it would have been the gate that would have made that sound, right? But the gates don't have that function, which shocks the hell out of me that it doesn't have that function, but it doesn't. So, yeah. So there you go. And I think there's another gate up here as well, but that's more of an invisible one, and you have the diverter in there. Again, if you want to add the diverter sounds, you can do that. Same thing as all the other mechanical sounds. What I just did for the gate right now, that's the same process you would do it for a diverter or any other miscellaneous item. So I think that's the last of it. Yeah, there we go. All right.
Welcome aboard the Night 2000.
All right. So if we... Oh, yeah, that sounds way better. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Hey. So again, when you add all those extra sounds in there, man, it can make such a huge difference. And that's it. All right. So now that we're at this point, guys, well, here, just give me a second here. Okay, guys, so we're pretty much at the end. I mean, the only thing that's left is whatever else stuff you guys want to add for any other table events or sound feedback events that your table may have. There's lots of other things that a table might have. Maybe more gates, maybe other stuff. You know, they're all different. But remember, you have all those extra FLEEP sounds that you can use, right? So you can always go through all of those and take a look and see if there's anything that's like, oh yeah, my table has that, and I want a sound just for that. But for the most part, we got all of them. So the only thing that's really left in this table's case would be ball rolling sound on the plastic ramp. Now, I'm not going to do that on this table. That's a bit involved. But I'll use the example table to kind of more illustrate it. So here's the example table, and let's make sure I got his code. Okay, so it's the same code that was in both, right? This is all from the ball rolling the change on a ramp, just like it says. So the idea here is you have 2 triggers at the entrance and 1 at the exit. Now, the one at the exit does 2 things. In the case of this one, it's used for the ball drop, but it's also used to tell the table when the ball is coming off the ramp. These 2 are to tell it when it's entering the ramp or when it's exiting the ramp from here. So the idea is the ball may have gotten up the ramp, but it may not have gotten far enough, and then it rolls back down. But we need to know when to change the ball rolling sound from wood to plastic. So the idea here, and all this code here is basically saying is, ball rolls this way, it hits this first opto trigger, and it's like, okay, you're about to start going onto the ramp, no problem, but we won't change sounds yet. Then when it finally hits this one, it keeps track of the last trigger that was hit, which is this guy. So when it hits this one, it's like, oh, this is the last trigger we hit, so now I know the ball is going in this direction, so that's okay to change the ball rolling sound to a plastic sound instead of a wood sound. And then from this point on, the ball rolling sound will change to plastic, and then the ball will keep going down and down, and then when it hits this trigger, then that trigger is the one that is going to say, okay, change the ball rolling sound to wood again. All right? So that's what all of this is about. You know, you have to add 2 triggers at the entrance. There has to be one at the exit if there's not one there already, and then you have to use this type of code here. You could basically swap out all the names to make it work. And then that way, it'll control all of that. One thing though, that only does that for Future Pinball sounds. It won't do it for PUP SSF sounds because PUP SSF can only use one set of ball rolling sounds. It can't dynamically change it to a wood sound, or sorry, a plastic sound or a metal sound, right? So that's one thing we can't, at least yet, do with that. So so just pay attention. I've got like subroutines here. If you look, like for example, I've got ball rolling ramp exit, right? And that's in the ball rolling code. So we have like, ball rolling plastic ramp, ball rolling wire ramp, ball rolling wood, ball rolling exit ramp. So this is all code that controls all that. It knows if it's PUP SSF, well, you don't do anything. If it's not PUP SSF, which means Future Pinball sounds, then it does all this stuff, right? So it's all controlled in there. And that's what each of these triggers will call as needed. So again, I'm not going to go through that in this, but I'll leave that up to you guys to go through this to try to figure out exactly how it's working. And then you just change the trigger names to match what you're using on your table to make it work. And that's it. And then if it does work, I'll use the example table. All right, so I actually have two of them on here, so you can hear that right away, right? You can hear how see how it's wood? But then when you get up to the plastic ramp, it changes. All right, so that's what all of that's controlling. But if I go into the plastic ramp, oh no, it's going to come back down again. And that therefore it controls it. All right, and the same thing with the other one. So with this one, but then if I go back down, so that's all of the extra stuff that you have to manually add yourself. Okay, the ball rolling is automatic for the rest of the table, as long as there's just like one normal ball. Like if you've got a bunch of captive balls already lying on the table, it may or may not work depending on the order of your code. But bottom line is, this works for Future Pinball sounds. All right. And that's about all I can really say about that. There's quite a bit to it. Yeah, I don't want to go through that in this. It's just way too much. But you have the info. You see the example. You can use that for yourself, guys. Okay, we're basically at the end, guys. We've got everything working fantastic through Future Pinball sounds. And it's all the way you like it. It's all fantastic. So we've saved the table. And it's all happy. So is there anything else we have to do? Well, what does the guide say? Ramp and ball. So we went through everything, right? This was all of this was the whole video. Add more FLEEP sounds for any extra sounds. Ramps and ball rolling sounds is what I just got done talking about. So now the only thing that's left is testing PUP SSF and DOF. Well, clearly, you guys can't test that if you don't have a cabinet, but if you have a cabinet, you can test it. So for that and PUP SSF, well, we have to enable those features. Now, I can't obviously test DOF on this video, but I can still enable it, okay? And I can enable PUP SSF. Now, remember, we copied the PUP pack already, so that's already set up and going. So now, when we run this table, if everything's working correctly, we can at least hear PUP SSF because I have Pinup Player installed. You need Pinup Player installed to hear it. If you don't have either one installed, test this anyway because you want to see if it's going to mess up. You want to see if it's going to mess up on someone's table, right? So we'll give this a go. Now for me, it's going to work. Well, it should work, I should say. All right, so easy way to test PUP SSF if it's working. Turn all the sounds down, all of them, okay? So now we'll see if we can hear anything. Oh, so that's how you know it's PUP SSF because PUP SSF is separate from Future Pinball. So therefore, whatever you do with Future Pinball sound settings has no effect on PUP SSF. And there you go. So that you know it's PUP SSF now. And you can hear the stereo, right? So it's very cool when it's with PUP SSF because that, oh man, yeah, I have headphones on right now and I can hear the ball zipping left and right. That's cool. Oh that's so cool. Oh man, and when you're playing this in VR, it sounds so much better. Oh yeah. Oh man, that's just so weird hearing that. There you go. And see, you don't have the game's music playing right now, right? So you can actually hear all the sounds. Right? So, yep. You can hear all the same sounds. See? Oh, you can hear the nudge. There you go. The slings. Yep. You have to have the ball going fast enough to hit the slings, right? And there you go. Ah, come on, get faster. There you go. And then the kickback. So just go around and test everything like you normally would. There you go. So you can actually hear all the solenoids and PUP SSF easier because none of the game sounds are there, right? Yeah, so imagine hearing those inside of a cabinet with actual feedback. You can feel it on your hands as well, you know, and that you hear it from the position. It's very cool if you have a setup that can work with that. It's very, very cool. But yeah, so I mean, oh, the bumpers, that's the other thing we haven't done yet. Oh, the lovely bumpers. Here, let's just do that. Oh, that manual camera. I don't want that. I want that. There we go. Yeah, you can hear all the sounds, eh? There you go. Oh, yeah. Isn't that cool? Yeah, let's get there. Yeah, all right. So there, that's how you know PUP SSF is working. It's that simple. And when I turn it up, it's only PUP SSF working, right? Yeah. Now we're talking, baby. Hell yeah. Got FizX. We got our layouts fixed. Ball flow is so much better. We got full surround sound feedback. If we had a cabinet, we'd have that basic DOF with solenoids working. This is the way it is, man. And then you can adjust your sounds however you want. There you go.
You did a damn good job.
I did a damn good job.
I'm proud to have you as a partner.
Well, thank you.
Welcome aboard the Night 2000.
And that's it, guys. That's it. It's working. So there's one other test you can do. You can just run the debugger and see what it shows, just out of curiosity. So I'm going to hit F9. And it may show DOF and all that enabled in the top left. I just want to see if it'll show that. Okay, so good. So if you look on the left side there, it shows the BAM version, the version of FizX that's being used, what profile flippers are being used. So DOF is installed on my system. So it's saying start DOF with the config Future Pinball DOF, which is what the table is set up to use. Start the PUP pack, so that means Pinup Player is installed. And then it's using Future Pinball PUP SSF, which is the PUP pack we installed earlier. And ball rolling sounds are enabled. It says right there, DOF enabled, PUP SSF enabled. Future Pinball mechanical sounds enabled are not true because if you have PUP SSF detected and working, it will automatically disable the Future Pinball sounds. So now it's going to tell you all the sounds that are being used as well. So SSF flipper, and it tells you the sound effect that's being used.
Welcome aboard the Night 2000.
So there you go. See all the rubbers that are being hit. all sorts of stuff. Now you can turn off a lot of that stuff in the code if you want for what type of debug info you want, but again, if you're having problems, this is a good way to try to fault find and troubleshoot. All right. Perfect. All right. I mean, I am damn happy with that, guys. Damn happy. So as far as you know, our all-in-one example code and FizX and our FLEEP sounds, our SSF and DOF, basic DOF that's done with this code, it's all working. I would test in a cabinet, obviously, to make sure, but beyond that, it's working. So all of that it's good, man. I mean, this is essentially good to go. There's not really anything else as far as the all-in-one example table and all of these features. There's not really much else to do. Okay, so now you're basically at the point where you want to decide now, you know, how you want your table to be configured, if you will, in terms of what you want enabled. So if you've done your testing of PUP SSF and DOF and you feel confident about it, you know, working and everything, then you can leave these guys enabled, right? Just make sure that, you know, you might want to include the PUP SSF PUP pack with your table. Baller Installer will install it with the newer version that's coming out. If my Future Pinball and BAM Essentials will include it, so people can install it from that if they want. But if someone doesn't have that installed, understand they won't have mechanical sounds if this is set to true, okay? They should know, reading this, what they need, right? So if you're worried, you can still leave it at true, and if they have a problem, well, then tell them to read this, right? You know, it tells them right there. So the only other thing that's left is this guy here, Launch DMDExt. Now, this is just an extra that JLou wanted added to the example code. What this is for launching DMDExt or DMD extensions as a separate window to mirror the Future Pinball window. It's meant for multi-screen cabinet setups. So if you have a cabinet, you most likely already know about this. By default, you don't need this because most people are just going to run that with their front end anyway. The front end will launch Future Pinball and it'll run DMDExt. But the code is included on here if you want to manually do it. It does require extra setup. I'm not going to do that in this video because JLou has a wonderful web page that will tell you all about it. If I remember correctly, I thought I had it on here. Oh, I remember that. That's up here in the optional section. Hold on a second here. I think at least I thought I did. Oh, maybe it's up here. Oh, maybe did I forget that? Oh, no, it's here. Okay. Oh, I almost had a heart attack there. So yeah, the optional features you can disable, enable. So launch DMDExt is basically what I just told you about. If you click on this, and then boom, this is JLou's info for how to add all that, like to a table, which it's already been added, and how to make it work is the bottom line. Okay, so that's up to you guys if you want to enable that. But understand, if you don't take those extra steps that he outlines, and you run this with this true, you'll get an error, okay? Or at least you should get an error. We'll see if it does. Okay, so there you go. The reason for that is you have to have, you have to have this set to same as VPX, all right? And that might not be enough, okay? And then you may have to change it in the script to make sure it works correctly. Yeah. So line 2565. So I know where that's at. That is way down. Yeah, it's over here. Hold on. It's right up here. Yeah. So it's in this section here. So I added an extra blurb, about this, saying to read this, and then when you read this, it gives you the link. But the bottom line is, guys, you had to make the change to BAM to allow this to work. That's basically launching direct apps from Future Pinball. And then this needs to be set up, so that it's going to work correctly You basically have to change something in Windows to allow it to work. You know, there's other stuff to do, not in this video, but I just wanted to show you where that info is on here in case you ever want to make use of it. Personally, I'd recommend not keeping that enabled. I'd recommend launching it from either your front end if you want it, or I'll have batch files like this included with the all-in-one example package that's coming out, and then you'll be able to just run it from here, you know, however you want. Okay, so you have the options, but again, read JLou's info about that. That's beyond the scope of this tutorial. All right, so you're at the end, and as it says, that's it. If all went well, you have a table that plays better, sounds better, has feedback, has DOF, ball rolling sounds are automatically working, and it's just a total game changer. You know, now the only thing left is updating lighting, shadow maps, you know, maybe newer art, whatever else you want to do on the table, you know. But that's a separate video. Maybe if I get ambitious to ever show something, I don't know if I will or not. But you know, bottom line is we're done here. We're done, man. That's it. That's the last of it. I know it's a long video, but you know, it's a lot of stuff to do. But again, when you do this on your own and you know what you're doing, you can go pretty fast. Okay, like when you have to consider what we've done here. We've taken an old table and completely transformed it. You know, we've made it completely play better in every way. We've made it sound better in every way. You know, we have all the options you could ever want regarding those sounds or the physics. The table problems have been fixed. The flow is all great and all that. And now you can either be happy with it as is, or you can update it for lighting and all that on your own leisure afterwards. But now you know how to update any Future Pinball table like this, or create a brand new one to use these as well, because you have the example table that you can start with, right? So that's about it, guys. Nothing else to say. Just if you have questions, there's a link in the top here for support. So that's the the all-in-one example table page here, and there's a lot of them here. This link could change in the future, but that's all the info. The basic info, and this is where you'll get the main download link for the table. This could change in the future, and I may not have this, and I may have it linked to the essentials all-in-one package, or I'll have both. We'll see. But yeah, all the info's on here, just like as always, and all the support's going to be in here. As you can see, we got 11 pages, so a lot has changed since version 1. So. All right, so that's it, guys. I know it's a long video, but thanks for hanging in there and taking the time to learn how to do this. It can be frustrating at first when you're new to it all, but if you take your time and one step at a time, you'll be able to get your tables running really, really well and sounding well and playing well and making everyone happy at the same time because you've supported all their features that they can use in their expensive toys. So see you guys. See you in my next videos.